Everybody, this is Tracy here with another edition of A View from Tracy's Point, and we are here today along with my morning voice, my allergy season voice, my voice that is feeling like it is not going to make it through the day. And if you've been rocking with me for a while, you know my voice, it has a life of its own. And so today its life is heavy, okay? And it just doesn't want to be up. It doesn't want to be in use. But we are going to just have a brief little discussion about Mr. Kelly and this BOP officer that was allowed to resign after an internal review of her behavior back in December of 2019. And so there is a push for R. Kelly supporters to send letters to certain people within the BOP and the Department of Justice regarding this employee and this investigation of the employee, when there was already a full investigation of the employee, and the resolution was that she was allowed to resign and retire. And so people put a lot of emphasis on the fact that she was allowed to resign and retire. So I am going to give this opinion on that aspect of it, because I am somebody that has worked for a government agency before. And what I found while working for this government agency is that they really don't like firing people, especially if a union is involved. And I don't know if this employee, the Bureau of Prison employees, these federal employees are under a union. But I know for the government agency that I worked for, we had a union. And so when people got in trouble, they really didn't like to go through the firing process because they had to deal with the union. The union was going to send in representatives and they were going to fight for the employee. And a lot of times the employee would not be fired. So what they would do is they would offer the employee the opportunity to resign, to avoid the paperwork, to avoid the aggravation, to avoid having to bring this employee back, out and pay them back pay and all this stuff like that. So they would give the employee the opportunity to resign. Now, with the agency that I work for, it wasn't just an agency, it was the government, the branch of the government that I worked for. Once you were employed for 10 continuous years, you were entitled to your pension, whether you resigned or were fired. You were going to get your pension regardless. The pension would just be at the number of years that you worked for that agency or for that entity. So what I am thinking happened with this BOP employee, she obviously had been there for many, many, many years. They did this investigation. They found that she had behaved inappropriately. And so they gave her the option to be terminated, go through this, investigation. They may have even threatened to charge her with criminal activity just to get her to leave. But they found that what she did probably wasn't criminal. It was bad, yes, but it wasn't criminal. So no charges were brought against this lady. So it came down to, you violated internal policy, so we can fire you, or you can resign and take your pension and go on about your business. And depending on what age she was, and I can't remember if they said how old she was or how long she had been there, but I know she had been there a long time. And so she chose, whatever conversation she had with them, she chose to retire, take her pension, and go on about her business, which is not uncommon. So then it comes down to whether or not the behavior, whether it was just a violation of internal procedures or whether she had committed a crime. And when you look at the evidence, and I am going to, like I said, I may have said this because I started this video over a couple of times, not sure if I said it on this video, but I will drop the link to the video that I did last year when all of this came out and all of this unfolded. Jennifer Bongine requested information on the case. The prosecutors went and pulled the records and provided it to Jennifer Bongine, and then Bongine never mentioned it again, which means that she knows that it was not a criminal matter. That the way it was handled, the fact that this person was allowed to retire, it was procedure, and that she had basically violated internal processes, but she hadn't committed a crime. And then Tasha K came out with her own video where she talked about it. She told how the lady reached out to her and offered her the information, and she told how there was no money that was exchanged, for this information that this lady provided to her. And that's really important because part of the criminal investigation was, and I shouldn't even say criminal investigation, part of the investigation into the employee's behavior was that the FBI got involved. And basically what they were looking for was to see if there was an exchange of money. Now, had Tasha K reached out to this lady, contacted this lady and said, I will pay you X amount of dollars for this information, that would be criminal. If the lady reached out to Tasha K and said, hey, I have this information, I'll sell it to you, that would have been criminal. But the lady accessing the information was not criminal, and the lady giving the information to Tasha K and whoever else she may have given it to was not criminal. And so one of the things that was pointed out in the paperwork that was submitted was that there were multiple employees that accessed the information, right? But those employees actually worked at the MCC where Mr. Kelly was at the time, where he was staying at the time. And so those employees, if you don't know anything about the prison system, is that they read the inmates' mail. So be careful what you're putting in the letters that you're sending to them. They read the mail, they read their emails, and they listen to their phone calls. So those people were authorized to read, read his mail and to listen to his calls. Now, I guarantee you, some of those people who had access to Mr. Kelly's information was telling other people about that information. So they were sharing the information, just like this unauthorized employee who wasn't at the MCC shared the information with Tasha K and probably shared it with other people. Now, what differentiated them, other than the fact that she wasn't authorized, is that the dummy was sitting there downloading the information, emailing information. So she left a trail that was easily accessible and easy for the FBI to go back and find this information. But once again, was it criminal, or was she just violating the government procedures? And what they ultimately determined was that because there was no exchange of money for the information, it was not a criminal matter, that it was an internal matter, and the BOP dealt with her, and basically she was fired because she was forced to resign. But it didn't impact her pension because she was already vested. If it's anything like the government agency that I worked for, she was already vested. She was going to get that money anyway. So they saved themselves a lot of red tape by saying, you need to resign. And she resigned and she went on about her business. And so I don't think, R. Kelly supporters writing letters to the BOP is going to change that. This lady is not going to be criminally charged. This matter was dealt with internally because it was an internal issue. And they meted out whatever they said to her to say, we're either going to fire you, we'll go through the process of firing you, or you can resign. You're still going to get your pension either way. So just resign, save face, go find a job somewhere else without this blemish on your record that you were terminated by us. Guess I could put it another way. Back in the day, and I'm sure women do this to this day, but back in the day, we had friends that worked for the phone company, that worked for the mobile cell phone company, that worked for the cable company, that worked for AAA, all these different companies, right? And then when you were having problems with your boyfriend, you would call your friend who worked for whatever agency that could help you. If your boyfriend moved, or I should say ex-boyfriend, if the guy you were dating or the guy you just broke up with moved, you would call your friend that worked at the power company and say, girl, look his name up and see where he moved at. Where did he transfer his electricity to? Or do you see his name on anybody's electric bill, like the baby mama or something like that? So what this lady did was tantamount to young women that are snooping around trying to find out information about their boyfriend. Now, is that employee committing a crime by accessing this person's information and giving it to you? At that point, no, they're not committing a crime. The crime is committed if you then go to that person's house, to their new apartment or whatever, and you commit an assault or something, or you break into the apartment. So now a crime has been committed, and then it could be traced back to that employee who gave you that information, and then that employee could be charged with being an accessory to the crime that you committed. But basically accessing somebody's information, as long as it's not medical records, but just accessing your phone records and saying, oh girl, like this is his new phone number, or girl, this is where the new address is, it's not criminal until a criminal act is committed based on you accessing that information from that person. And even if you were charged with committing a crime on that person, the employee more than likely is not going to be charged with a crime. They are going to be pulled in. They're going to be scared by the police. They're going to terrorize them and say, if you don't testify against this person and say that they came to you and asked you for this information and you gave them the information, or you just willingly gave them the information, then we'll trump up some charge and charge you with it. But other than that, the only person that would have been criminally charged is the friend who was asking for the information, but only if that person committed a crime, did something illegal with that information. And so I just think that, and people are entitled to do what they want to do. If you want to send these letters, I'm just having a problem understanding what is sending the letters to the BOP and these different officials. What is the end game? What is it supposed to accomplish? So while I was talking to you guys, I did look up the Bureau of Prisons to see if they have a union, and they do in fact have a union. And it says, under federal law, the BOP must negotiate policies with its national union when those policies affect the conditions of employment of the more than 30,000 BOP bargaining unit employees, and the BOP union contracts provide for in-person policy negotiations. And so I am pretty sure, 99% sure, that this lady was a part of the union, because I believe her role with the BOP was that she was a hearing officer. And so she knew the policies and procedures, and she knew, how this thing was going to play out, because she probably had sat in many disciplinary hearings. So she knew how it was going to go. And so the BOP was just like, we can go through the process of terminating you, or you can just resign and go on about your business, take your pension, and just get out. Okay. And trust me, that's punishment enough. If you've worked for the same company for, 15, 20, 30 years, like that is all and then you have to leave your job and go out into this world, like the lady took the pension, she took the pension and went on, and said, okay, I'll figure things out after the fact. And that's what it all boiled down to. And I know that Jennifer Bongine is probably over it. You know, she's trying to work on this appeal. She has to send these documents in. She's writing a 19,000 word motion that is due in a few weeks. And she really doesn't have time to deal with this whole thing. But I know she is annoyed to no end that this is taking place. But she doesn't want to rile the supporters. She doesn't want to get, you know, entangled. You know how Doug Anton was just all entangled with the supporters. Jennifer Bongine is not going to go that route. But I know she's annoyed by this. And so I just wanted to come to you guys today, you know, just to kind of like put a different twist, like have you look at it in a different way and ask yourself, is this really beneficial? Is this really going to prove a point? Is it going to change the outcome that has already been decided, which is that this employee did not do anything criminally? What she did was an internal matter, and it was dealt with. She is out of her job, whether she was fired or whether she resigned. So many companies give people the opportunity to resign. So the fact that they said you can resign is no big deal, because it happens in private sector jobs, it happens in public sector jobs, it happens under the government, where people do things, they're called in, and they are often given the opportunity to resign over being fired. And so I think that's what it comes down to, is that they just called her in. They said, we have all this evidence against you, all this proof that you violated company policy, and we need you to go. And it was as simple as that. And so I'm not going to tell anybody to write the letters. I'm not going to tell anybody not to write the letters. But I just want you to look at this and then ask yourself, what is really going to come of this? Is this going to change anything? And taking into consideration that the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, was called in to investigate this matter, to see if anything criminal took place. And the only criminal act that would have taken place would have been that there was an exchange of money for this information. And they obviously determined there was no exchange of money. There was no exchange of favors. Therefore, this was an internal matter that had to be dealt with in an internal disciplinary action. And it was not a criminal action, and the case was closed. And all of this information was presented last year through a motion that Jennifer Bongine filed and that the government responded to and provided the information. And so why it is continuing on now, I have no idea. I don't know who got into Mr. Kelly's head and told him that this was going to change, that this was going to have any impact on anything. I don't know. And I mean, if Jennifer Bongine thinks it's important enough, she will put it in the motion for his appeal to see if the Second Circuit is going to, is it the Second or the Seventh? I think it's the Second Circuit, if they are going to hear the appeal or not. And then also you got to consider, how is this looking to the people that will be listening to the appeal, that will determine if he gets an appeal. If Mr. Kelly is out here talking to bloggers and he's pushing this idea that somehow his girlfriends turned against him because this BOP officer was sharing his information, that's not a good look for him. And that's how I felt from the beginning. That's not a good look from him. But anyway, I just wanted to give you guys this different viewpoint and to show that what this officer did, yeah, it was bad, but it's no different than stuff that people are doing every day on their jobs when they have access to our information. And it's probably 10 times worse now since COVID took place, because now people are sitting in their houses, okay? Like when you call and talk to a banking representative, that person is sitting in their house accessing your information, and you don't know who is standing behind them, standing around them, who is able to see your information. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of information is being passed around and shared that shouldn't be passed around and shared. But until a criminal act actually happens, then it's just an eternal disciplinary hearing, and hopefully those people are terminated or they are given the opportunity to resign. And I'll say it again for the people in the back. The person who accessed Mr. Kelly's records, the fact that she was allowed to resign instead of being fired, it's like apples and oranges. It really is still fruit, okay? At the end of the day, it's still fruit. And she still is out of a job that she had had for years and years and years. Her, as our grandparents would say, the good government job, okay? you gonna leave that good government job? Are you crazy? So anyway, guys, go ahead, leave your comments below, rate the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and until the next time, I shall talk to you guys later. Bye bye.